All right, so thanks for joining us on this very, very first episode of Loud Women Talking. So this is the first in a series of interviews, chats, discussions, giggles with just the amazing, incredible, inspiring women that I know. It's a completely selfish endeavor because it just gives me a chance to sit down and spend more time chatting to the women that I know. But I'm hoping that some of these conversations will help other women who are trying to build a business with impact or just want to hear stories of women who are maybe a few steps ahead of them and learn from them and get inspired by some of the things that they're doing. So I'm joined today by Antoinette. And just to give anyone that's watching that doesn't know me very well, I'm going to give you just a very quick intro. So I'm Felice. I left my corporate marketing job 3 years ago to start my business. And I now work almost exclusively with women. And I'm all about helping them to shine in their business through their marketing, building their confidence, and helping them to have a business that has impact and lasting change that really fulfills them. And that's how Antoinette and I met about 6 months ago on a very windy beach in Worthing. And we sparked our gorgeous friendship. So, Antoinette, I'm just going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Antoinette, founder of Just Help Us Cleaning Agency, amongst other businesses, but that's the one that pays the bills. I've been running Just Help Us for 13 years in different contexts and guises. And my big vision is that every cleaner in the UK would be paid the real living wage or above. So that's partly what I'm about.
It's a big vision that you have. And tell us a little bit about how it came about. So your background before Just Help Us and why this particular business was so close to your heart.
I think if you'd asked me 13 years ago, would I be here? I would literally have laughed and told you, like, you're insane. Get back in your box. So my background is teaching. I was a PE teacher. And I've got this little mantra in the back of my head about, what is a PE teacher from Croydon doing here? Which runs as a narrative through a lot of my business life. So I left teaching after a massive life thing where I started to hear about human trafficking and how men, women, and children were suffering around the world. And this is overwhelming statistic that there were 28.9 million people enslaved at that time, which blew my mind because it in that moment, about 18 years ago, it was more than the entirety of the number of people enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade, which lasted 400 years. So that was my comparison. And I kind of set out on a quest to disprove that statistic because I just thought this sounds a bit inflated. And in that quest, it just, I mean, even now, I found myself weeping last night about a trafficking story that I was reading. It grips my whole body when I start to hear these things. So I sold my house. I went on this, I'm going to move to India and educate the women and girls on the streets of India about the perils of the bright lights of London. And actually found myself in a big round circle, almost back on my doorstep, understanding that the problem was not out there. The problem was here on our shores, in my neighbourhood, in Croydon, across the whole of the UK. And that things like cleaning, nail bars, car washes, these were all part of the exploitation, trafficking, slavery continuum. And so what I realised a PE teacher from Croydon could do was educate. And so I joined interned, the world's oldest intern, and then got a paid job campaigning up and down the country and within my local London borough, which was Merton at the time, around the indicators of trafficking. Some really grotty work, posing as punters in groups of 3 on the phone and mapping brothels. Oh, awful dark times. But the tail end of that was that I had taken a massive pay cut. I was now living rent-free initially in a friend's spare room, but needed to get my own space. And so I needed some money, and cleaning started as a side hustle. I just thought this will be a low maintenance job. I can be like a ninja. I can get in, get out. Nobody will talent spot me. I won't have to manage anybody. It will be a thing that has a start and a clear end, and not like a gnarly to-do list that just keeps going on and on and on. And so that's how the cleaning started. And I did that. I gave it 10 hours a week. I was juggling 2 other jobs. So I was the project lead on this charity, and trying to grow it from a sort of back living room thing to a proper entity that had a place and space in our local borough. And I'd also been invited back by school to do some peripatetic sports coaching. So cleaning was just supposed to be a very discreet, contained piece of work. And that's how I started. But of course, because I'm me, when I turn up as a teacher, it grew. It just grew and it grew and it grew out of control. And eventually I had to take someone else on. And not really take on, but I just I could share the load, because I wanted to take on the sister of my favourite client. So I thought, if I get someone else, it'll be a bit of a laugh. I can have a bit of company. We'll share the hours, which means we can double down on clients. And then that will be my lot, still contained to my 10 hours, but I could extend it to a few more clients. And we grew and grew and grew until we'd got like a double docket of clients. Then my colleagues sort of said, well, I know you're off doing your other 2 jobs, but I'd quite like more clients. Can you find something? Like, well, not really. I don't really understand how I've got these lot, but if another one comes up, you can have it. So that happened. And then she left the country because London wasn't working for her and she just wasn't enjoying it. And then I was left with this double docket plus of clients. And I had to make a decision in a hurry. And so it's when I started to more purposefully take on more women. And at that point, I started to hear the stories of what was really going on in the industry.
Would you be up for sharing a couple of those with us?
Oh, sure. So with my very first colleague, who stayed for loads of years, actually, she shared that she was looking for more cleaning work because the company she was currently with hadn't paid her in months. And that when they had paid her before, they'd underpaid her, according to her. And they told her things like, well, you've got costs now. Like they would drive her to her job. So they told her that she'd got transport costs. They were helping her with accommodation. So they said that she'd got accommodation costs. And honestly, when I picked her up one day, she was living in a house share of 10 people. And she said in this house, there were people that were sharing rooms, sharing mattresses with complete strangers, because that's partly what this company had engineered for them. So really not living in a great place. She'd be so stressed most days when we'd rock up to work because she maybe hadn't slept the night before or it had been disrupted. And I kind of thought, oh, that's a one-off. Until I didn't recruit. She brought her friend along and said, this woman pays us on time every time, and what she promised she would pay. So could you take my friend on? I'm like, not really. I don't have any, I don't know how to find clients when the next one comes along. And if we can't do it between the 2 of us, maybe. Yeah. So that happened. Her friend came on board and had a similar stories of being low paid or no paid or underpaid, and just really challenging living conditions. Then her mum came to the UK, so I took her mum on. And she just said, I don't want my mum to experience any of this. But her mum went on to have her own private clients and eventually came back because, again, underpaid, no paid, low paid, treated really poorly, no dignity. I've got a story of one colleague that turned up to a place to clean, and the person let her in naked. So she was a bit taken aback at the door, but she was just on this conveyor belt of, oh my gosh, I'm here. I'm just gonna keep it moving. Yes. Tried to sort of, locked herself in the bathroom. Yeah.
Still went in and cleaned.
Locked herself in. And did you what?
I said she still went in and cleaned.
Yes, because she was just in such shock.
Yeah.
But then she locked herself in the bathroom and called us. This was one of her private clients. She said, "What shall I do?" So I'm like, "Get out now, open the door, march forward, pick your bag up, get out." But these are the kind of things that were happening to the women all the time. And honestly, it took me about 18 months to start to understand that this job, that, I was busy campaigning up and down the country for this charity,
Yeah.
to understand that this messy business, I wasn't even calling it a business at that point, it looked like a charity, this messy thing um, was probably the thin end of the wedge of trafficking and exploitation,
Mm.
and that I was involved.
Yeah, because I know when you first told me some of these stories, and it was the first time I'd ever heard anything. Like I was, I'm aware
Mm,
that, rates of pay and that it doesn't pay very well as an industry. But when I started to hear some of the stories of women, and men and women and young people kind of being trapped into these
yeah,
situations, like you say, they come over with the promise of work and then they have costs added on, their housing costs.
yeah,
Before you know it, there's no money coming in and they still owe all of this money to the people that are
yeah,
supposedly employing them. And it just becomes a spiral that they can't get out of, which just must be the most horrendous experience
yeah,
for somebody coming into a country that they don't know very well. So yours must just be a bit of a
absolutely.
beacon of light. And I'm sure you take on a lot more people if you could. And that's obviously their future goal. Was there a moment where, like looking back, was there a moment when you decided there's never just one, but sometimes there's like a final moment where you just decided that this business was going to be about dealing with and tackling that issue?
I think you're right. I think it was a series of moments. So there was a big push, like, Antoinette, are you all in or not?
Mm.
And I had to make that decision. And I know I've got a faith background. I'm a Christian, and I just really, like, I'd been out. I just thought I've got to get rid of this business because I really need to invest in the charity. But it's almost like within the space of 3 months, I feel like God just removed everything else that was really properly flourishing and thriving and doing the right things. So the charity discovered that it didn't actually have money for my role, even though I had put money in the account for my role. Um, and school were like, well, we want you full time or no time. And so what was left was the cleaning business.
Mm.
Um, so that was my first revelation. Then I sort of had about a month into, oh my gosh, this is really happening, an absolute meltdown thing. I don't even know how to write. I'm not even calling this a business. I don't know how to do this. I need help. If I'm going to do this, I need help. And getting a cold call from a business coach, um, for whom I was his first client as well. So he was trying to do his self spiel. I'm just sat in stunned silence thinking, this is a thing. You can have a business coach. Um, and asking me this whole long list of, like, are your finances in order? No. Do you understand HR policies? No. Do you know how to get clients? Like, absolutely not. What's your recruitment funnel like? Non-existent. Oh no, there's Yana. That's my recruit. So
Yeah.
getting to that realization that I, I needed support,
Mm.
and then understanding that to pay for this support, I needed to invest the end of my house deposit money. Um, so that was another big stepping stone. Are you in or are you out? Like, because if you are, it's going to cost everything that you got right now.
Yeah.
And then probably it was about another year after that, when I probably got closer to 10 cleaning colleagues on board. Um, and I realized, no, these stories are consistent. There's a consistency here.
Mm.
And just having, it's like the middle of the night, things come to me in the middle of the night where I sort of open my eyes and go, oh, oh, this is the real story. Oh, you numpty. It's not about campaigning up and down the country, although that's great. It's about the everyday interactions that you have with everyday people.
Mm.
So yeah, it probably took me a good 18 months to 2 years to get on the same page as God and these women that were knocking down my door by now. And then start with the help of my coach, because I'd already was already there. Like, he was looking at my books and saying, "You're paying too much. We've got to sort that out. You've got to reduce what you pay the women." And I realized that that is an absolute non-negotiable. I will live or die on that. If I cannot run a business that pays all women at that point, we're diverse now, but if I cannot run a business that pays people a wage that allows them to thrive, not just survive, then what am I doing here? What's the point? If I'm not prepared to go to work for that, why on earth would I be encouraging somebody else? So that was a real line in the sand for him and for me. He's never had a client like me. I give him trouble, I still do. Um, and so I think I realized that the values that I have were woven into the business that I was forming. And then after around 2 years, we started to formulate that as we did some vision, mission, and purpose work.
That's brilliant. Because, like you say, it's that it's those decisions, isn't it? Those big decisions that often test how serious your commitment to it is. You know, how far are you willing to go to focus on the business and keep the mission together? And of course, here you are, you know, all these years later, running a successful business, and it was absolutely the right call for you. But that, you know, it's difficult in the moment, isn't it, when you're building, you don't have that, you know, absolute, you know, clarity that this is going to work, and you feel like you're just feeling your way. Sometimes I definitely have days where I feel like I'm just feeling my way, and, you know, sit in my pants and hoping it all works
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's in those moments that your commitment to it is tested. And how was it a big shift for you to go from being a campaigner and almost a little bit in the background to being the face of this change, and it now being about you and what you were saying and what you were doing?
Um, I mean, I still, yeah. So absolutely, 13 years down the line, I still struggle to call myself a face of change or a change maker or an innovator or like, literally, I'm up for an award with the Living Wage Foundation, which is a Trailblazer award, and I feel like a little 5-year-old, like, laughing, like, they really called me that. That's bizarre and weird, because it doesn't feel like it in the everyday. It doesn't feel like it, but I think as each year is going on and meeting people like you, actually last year, you said 6 months, that tells me that it's felt nice and light and quick, but it's almost a year, I think, since we started to first have conversations. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it must have been. Yeah. God,
yeah,
yeah, because we're
but
6 months
actually
into
having
it.
conversations, yes, exactly. Having conversations with people like you that get what you're on about, get what you're doing, and share a different narrative, similar vibe, really give you those shifts, really help you to turn the camera back on yourself and look at who you are, where you're going, and what you're doing. So, do I call myself a change maker or whatever the phrase was, face of change? Still probably not in my inner woman, but I'm learning to wear that mantle a bit more comfortably.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I know some of the women I work with struggle with that a little bit. You know, it's the whole "who am I to think I can achieve that?" and that vision feels too big
Yeah.
for them. And actually, once you're in it and you're doing it, you still
Yes.
don't feel like that's who you are, but you are doing it. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's a nice feeling once you start to see the impact of the work that you're doing. It's more than nice. It's a wonderful feeling when you start to see the impact of what you're doing. But often, I
Mm.
think for a lot of people who are
Mm.
running those kind of businesses, they don't actually think about it. They simply cannot wake up and do anything else.
Yes.
It's not even a question as to what they're going to spend their day doing. It's not about today I'm going to work, you know, wake up and go out and have impact and, you know, feel good about myself. It's not even a conscious decision. So
Yeah, I'd so totally agree. It's just it's just like, why wouldn't I do that? That's the right thing to do. Isn't everyone doing that? That's kind of where I sit in this. Yeah.
Yeah. I know sometimes people, one of the things that I do quite regularly is get into discussions with people on social media around gender equality and misogyny, and people say to me, does it not frustrate you and does it not upset you reading the comments and and getting involved in those discussions? But for me, it's like I see it, I can't not say something. The urge is too strong. The feminist rage comes up and I
Mm,
absolutely need to hit that keyboard. So it's not like, it's not like a conscious decision. It's very much a I have to do this. And
yeah.
yeah. Um so you've mentioned the award that's coming up. You've also won some other awards in the past, around the living wage and as a business, as a purpose-led business. But what's been the most fulfilling part of this journey, which I know is a big question,
Mm.
but are there any specific speeches, transformation stories, any moments where you've just
Yeah.
thought it's all worth it?
I think I can mention 3 different incidences, or so one is a type. So what we gather the team socially 3 times in the year, one for a picnic in the park with family, friends, children, dogs, everyone. The second is just casual Christmas drinks in a bar somewhere in the West End, and the third is a big annual awards evening. And it's always at times like that when I see the whole team together, people laughing, people thriving, just side by side chats about life and dreams and holiday and families. Um, I just can't get over how many people are in the room that are somehow connected to this thing that we've built over the years. It blows my mind every time. Um, I just sit in the corner, I like a gurning granny, just like, oh, look at this, isn't it amazing? Um, the second is just coming out of lockdown, my team conspired to put together a book for me, like a memory book. Um, and honestly, like it literally, I've got a tiny TV, it's the size of my laptop almost, and the book now covers that, so it's not even plugged in anymore. And it was just page after page of photos and stories of women from the past and the present at that point. And I don't think I'd ever sat and counted how many women had passed through the agency or were currently involved. And our number exceeds 300 now that have come and gone for all sorts of reasons, but some wonderful reasons like moving on to university, moving on to set up their own business, going back home to their country of origin because they'd managed to save enough and achieve the goals that they'd wanted to. Um, oh, so that just, it makes me weep every time I read it, and I do when I'm feeling a bit low. I'll open it and just have a flick through.
Yeah.
Uh, and the last was so one of our things is that we're always talent spotting to see which of our cleaning colleagues, we call them helpers, might be able to elevate into the admin team. And so I had a really great colleague come on board, and we were given this an opportunity to speak at a local like chamber linked to a living wage event. And I asked her to tell if would she be willing to tell her story, and it just blew my mind. She owned the room. She spoke with poise and power. And it's like, yes, this is who you were. You trained to be an HR person in your country. You've got another master's under your belt for something else, and yet you've ended up cleaning in this country. And one of the lines that she said was, working with us was the difference between buying like saver menu junk food meals, like a 99p bag of fries from McDonald's, versus going to the supermarket and getting healthy cuts of meat and vegetables. And also that she'd been able to travel home and see her mum for the first time in 3 years since leaving home, because she just couldn't afford, A, to take the time off, and B, the money, like to save money, or like so excess income that would enable her to do that. And that story is not uncommon either. We have women that haven't seen their children for years because they had to make the decision to come here for a better economic life, and they had the choice between sending money home, well, surviving first of all, if they got into a job like ours, sending money home, or actually going home. Can you imagine not seeing your child for 3 years? Like I
Couldn't
can't.
imagine. No. And that's just it, isn't it? It's the change isn't just the women that are working with you, it's that rippling effect that's impacting their partners, their children,
Yeah.
their, the grandparents, the broader families, and you're now a part of their story, whereas their story could have been very different if Just Helpers didn't exist. So you're right. I think when there's days when you feel like quitting, because we all feel like quitting. I feel like it every single day. I think wouldn't I feel if I just had a job?
Yep.
We all feel like that. So I think having something like that to ground you, remind you why you're doing it, is so important. Is so important. So one of the questions I thought we'd have to have a quick chat about is, how do you balance, because I struggle with this, I really struggle with this, how do you balance marketing the mission over marketing the business? Because when we need to make money, so we can sell our services, but if I could, I would talk only about the mission 24/7. But yeah, how do you manage to do it? Because you've been doing it for 13 years now, so you've obviously found a way.
Oh yeah, I've nailed that one. Not. So I don't manage it very well, and actually, it's why I needed to talk to someone like you. Like, you've been a game changer for our business, because I lost the messaging of the mission, because I just got dragged under with, you've got to find clients, you've got to do cleaning hacks, you've got to do all these things that cleaning related, that say, cleaning is what you do. And actually, it took for you to come along and say, cleaning is not what you do. It's an outpouring, it's an expression or a fruit of what you do, but it's not the thing you do. The thing you do is enable women to thrive, or enable people in low paid work to thrive. Actually, it's not even that. The thing I do is enable people to be free in whatever that looks like. It just happens to be cleaning at the moment. And that was revolutionary for me. So actually, now that's what I talk about, with subtle nods to cleaning in our marketing. And that feels so much more congruent and authentic to me. It's given me a passionate vibe to show up in the world again. It's given me permission not to be every Tuesday evening, because that's when it was, thinking, oh God, what cleaning hack do I have to put in front of the camera today? And feeling a little bit fraudulent. And actually, what I'm seeing is, with this new kind of congruency or clarity on my marketing, that the right people are finding us with really exciting conversations. I'm back in the trenches in my business this week because my salesperson is sick. So I'm doing sales for the first time in about 4 years. But the conversations are wonderful, because it's all people that know our story, are here because they've got a activist or social justice heart. That there's no big sell to them. They already get, it's going to cost more, and they just want to be a part of it, because they want to know that they are buying ethically and helping to be part of that narrative that changes an individual's life.
100%. And I think that was definitely something that we talked through, wasn't it? Is this question of, are those people out there? And of course they were. They were just waiting to find the right solution. And I think, and again, having that clarity and bringing those two together, the mission and the service together, just makes everything much more powerful, more effective. Everything works better, and you get the right clients in the door, which again just makes the business stronger.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and
hard.
you said it would work. You said it would work, and I'm like, oh, and
Yeah.
it is. It does.
Yeah, but it's hard to go down a fresh route, isn't it? It's hard to abandon something that, even if it's not working 100% the way you want it to, is paying the bills, and you've got staff and you've got responsibilities. So the idea of sort of taking that and moving it in a slight new direction does feel a bit scary. But and obviously I'm really glad that I was right, because it would have been awful if I wasn't. Um, um, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned? Like, if you were to go back to the beginning, is there anything that you would do differently?
Yeah. Um, I think I would have. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing,
Mm.
but this understanding that I was building a structure of some sort, and to have been a lot more intentional way earlier. That pricing is everything, and uh, I'll come back to pricing, but it's got to be a win, win, win. And for so long, it was a win, win, lose, with me losing or the agency losing and feeling guilty about doing well in that equation. But unless it's a win, 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 um, as in for us, a win for the cleaner, a helper, a win for the client, and a win for the company, it doesn't work. The structure falls down. So pricing is key. Margins are key. Knowing my numbers and not sticking my head in the sand. So I mean, we track around 104 different metrics, all things that tell us different things. If that's not your strength, get someone on board that is. Luckily for me, my business coach absolutely is a numbers guy. So that's been a really great partnership over the years. And finally, being true to my values. Like, it's the one thing I didn't have to learn, but I wish I pressed into that even more fully earlier on, and found a tribe of people that really understood that and could help cheerlead me along the way. Safe spaces where I could show up and not have to pretend to be all about yachts and planes and first class tickets, where I could show up and say, I am about people and the planet, and everyone thriving, and everyone go, yeah, right on, amen.
Yeah. Community is so important. It's so important, especially if you're going down a path that's not, not what everyone's doing. If you're in those rooms, in the wrong rooms, and you're around people that are constantly telling you should be aiming for other things or want other things, even if it's not, if it doesn't really match with your values, you find yourself constantly feeling like you're lacking. So yeah, get yourself in rooms with
Mm,
people who understand what it is you're trying to achieve and allow you to show up
mm,
fully as yourself, and those parts of you that actually are the best things about you, not the things that other people tell you to hide. That was, for me, an absolute game changer in my business, was to start getting in the right rooms. That was huge. Do you think
yeah,
all this experience and growing Just Helpers has changed you as a person in any way?
absolutely and irreversibly. I am significantly more resilient than I have ever been in any of my other roles, in any other parts of my life. Um, I've like my business acumen and expertise has increased exponentially, to the point where I now coach others. That feels bizarre and weird, but I call myself an expert in starting up and scaling up. Um, More than anything, it's forced me to live my values out in the public domain.
Mm,
And that gives me lots of introspection about, what does that look like? What does that really mean? How does that color every part of my life, rather than, pretend showing up masked parts? And it's given me, or it's shown me that it's given me new friends and new groups, and exposed me to a whole world of people that think and feel the same way. And so more and more, I'm finding my tribe, and that's just thrilling as well.
yeah. And you've got some exciting opportunities now, haven't you? You've been asked to get involved in a couple of projects, which is very exciting. I'll let you talk about it.
Yes. So I think that is probably when you feel like, oh, I've gone through a different door. And again, this is all since conversations with you and really understanding who am I, what am I about, what am I gunning for. So I've been invited to be on the advisory board of the Living Wage Foundation, which again, like when the director of the Living Wage like apologetically asked me out for lunch and said, "We're ever so sorry for taking your time," and then told me I had to kind of get my game face on and nod sagely, like, yes, of course you would be here asking me. Whereas inside I was like, what me? So that was really interesting. I've been invited to be part of a think tank for a Trust for London initiative, which is around making London a living wage city. So I'm sitting on the board for cleaning and security services. And that's kind of blowing my mind at the moment. It's like, wow, how do 10 people start to transform an entire city? But actually, that's always what I've been about. I want to make the whole of the UK change. So if one person can think that, 10 people surely to the power of 10 can improve the chances of that even more. Yeah, and so within that, it's kind of, these are like about 4 years ago, I started to condense what is it that I want to achieve before I'm allowed to step away from this business. And it's 3 things. I want to, what's the mission? Every cleaner in the UK paid the real living wage, but to do that, the VAT laws need to change for small margin service-based industries. That just sounds ridiculous, right? I need to go and talk to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, but hey, that happened last year. I was in a round table with Rachel Reeves, and suddenly we find ourselves in a general election where Rachel Reeves may well be the next Chancellor of the Exchequer. I need employment law. We need a new piece of employment legislation that is somewhere between the gig economy and worker status that protects the whole triangle, because right now it's skewed one way or the other, and invariably always the company loses out. And again, I'm being given an introduction to one of the smartest employment lawyers in the country and handed to me on a plate. And then finally, we need every single person in the UK to understand the real cost of ethical cleaning. Haven't worked that one out yet, but that's about media and platform based. So that's that's what's in the future. That's what's on the horizon. But I always have to end every talk by saying, like, my absolute heart game, because I'm a care leaver. My absolute heart game, which I really just want to get onto, is to create a foundation for entrepreneurial care leavers so that they can be in charge of rewriting their future story.
I love that. I mean, do you know what? You're one of those women that I think there is nothing you can't do. When you look at what you've achieved with Just Helpers, the minute you decide to put your attention onto that, I've no doubt that we're going to see that flourish as well. But I think
I hope so.
yeah. I think you're quite a force of nature, and that's being reflected in the opportunities and the doors that are opening. And you are absolutely the right person to be sitting in those rooms with those people and having those discussions. We're going to do last question, and then if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask, just drop them into the chat. So what advice would you give to somebody else, maybe at the start of their journey, or they have an idea for impact that they want to have and they want to build their business around it? What advice would you give them to give them the best shot possible of making that a reality?
So I would say get 1 or 2, probably 2 or 3 emotional running mates, first of all, that are either in your personal network or in a business network. People that can just cheerlead you, people that you can call at 10 o'clock at night and say, this is all rubbish, it's too hard, I don't want to do it anymore. You give you a bit of a smack on the head or a bit of a cuddle, cup of tea, and just say, you've got this, crack on. Get a mentor or a business coach. And I've got a mentor now as well as a coach, and this guy pretty much found me. and he really understands what I'm about. And his advice has been, again, just like game changing for us. So find advisors that get what you're about, and can really kind of manage the mental logistics of people, profit, and planet. People, planet, profit. Get really clear about what matters to you. You can't save the whole world or change the whole world.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of us are called to do that. But I think that we each have a responsibility for our corner of the world or our particular calling. So get absolute clarity and then just do that. Don't worry about the rest. Somebody else should have that bit of the world's jigsaw puzzle. I think we've talked about this before. Get into a network of like-minded people. Mine started with my church, but now include beautiful people like Felice, Better Business Networks, Business for Good networks. Find your people that are doing similar things, for learning purposes, for recovery purposes, for just, sparky sessions. And then my final thing, which I'm just learning now, is rest regularly. Plan in regular oasis breaks and be ruthless about that. Spaces where you can regularly regroup. I was planning in quarterly ones, but I've just taken on an EA, who is now managing my diary, and she's like, this needs to be monthly. You need a day out every month where you just get to sit and stare at the sky. Extended retreats that maybe have a bit more guidance in them, and then total switch off breaks. So mine, I've identified, is in the Caribbean, where I'm just floating on my back, staring at the sun with margaritas being swum out to me, and be okay about all of that, because you're going to need all that rest fuel for the run race that you've got ahead of you.
Yeah, because it's not an building a business for in any industry is not an easy task, especially at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think if you add in the emotional labor that it takes to really invest in a vision, a mission, and not necessarily see, when you completely immerse yourself in a world or in an issue, it does take quite a toll on you. As you said, there's a limit to what we can all achieve. There's a limit to what we can all change. So getting to a point where you can accept that, see it, feel angry, upset, hurt, depressed, powerless, and still keep moving forward. It's so important to give yourself a rest so you don't burn out, because it is a lot. That's brilliant. And I think the idea of the Caribbean and margaritas, like, I'm so down. Can I come? Take me in your suitcase.
You're all welcome.
We're all going to need a big retreat. We'll do it next year. All right. So are there any questions? Is anyone from our 3 people? I don't think there's any. Thanks for your comments, Vicky, Catherine, John. I think everyone's really enjoyed it. Okay. I wonder if there's a bit of a delay in the live. So I'll give them a couple of minutes just in case anyone has any questions. Oh yeah, we've got a question. Well done. So John said, oh, sorry. He said, Antoinette, before my question, I loved the use of just in your business name. Assume it's related to social justice. Brilliant, subtle bit of branding.
Oh, I think this might be a question to both of us, Jonathan, because I had to seek help from Felice around this. But yes, the just is all around social justice. It's just for justice, absolutely. One of the things I've understood is that if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't, and you may never will. So for ages, I was trying to have so many people saying, "Oh, that's really bad putting just in. It just makes it sound pejorative." And I was really sort of like, "Oh, do I change it?" But then I just thought, no, I instantly get it. When I see the word just in front of somebody's name, I'm always thinking it's related to justice. And I think working with Felice, what that's helped me to realize is it's okay to narrow down your field. It's okay to seek out the people that get it, because the cost of selling to them is money wise, time wise, values wise, is significantly less. So it's okay. There's enough people out there in the world, and growing, because actually it's going to be the sexy way forwards. Even if you don't believe it in your heart, we're going to get to that place, like wearing seatbelts, not smoking inside, where people have to say, oh yeah, I buy the right way, and will understand what those terms mean, even if they're not fully down with it. So don't waste too much money trying to sell to the unconvinced buyer. They're not your person right now. They will be, but they're not right now.
No.
Felice, what would you say?
Yeah, and I think, well, things that I think you've seen the shift, haven't you? Because previously, when you weren't focused on the mission, you were attracting people that were just wanting the bulk standard cleaning, and they were questioning price, and they were saying, "Well, is
Yeah.
this a premium service? Then do I get more for that? Because you're asking me to pay more. What am I getting?"
Yes.
And once you shifted the message, you're starting to attract the people that understand why they're paying more, and understand that that's a decision they want to make as a buyer, and you're not having to have those conversations as often with people as to why it's higher, why they're paying more, because they understand the mission. When they come to you, they already get who you're about. You've done a great job of communicating that and answering that question. So by the time they're having conversations
Yeah.
with you, we're not talking about price anymore. It's not something that's on the table for discussion. And that's why that brand message is
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
important in our marketing. If we are if we have a mission behind our business, that people will pay more, they'll invest more, they'll pick your business because they're motivated by the mission. And that's the same with almost any impact-led business. That if people understand what you're about, they'll connect with you over that, and it will make the purchase so much easier.
Mm.
So and then we've got, oh, Catherine.
Am I allowed a shameless plug here, Felice?
Of course
Sorry.
you can. Yes,
My shameless
absolutely.
plug
Plug.
is is that this is your superpower. This is what you've unlocked in my business. So if anyone is struggling with that, Felice is absolutely your woman, and will lead you down a very safe, exciting, and fulfilling pathway with your marketing. So yeah, go for it. It's changed our landscape.
That was so unexpected. I thought you were going to plug your business. I was like, yeah, go ahead and plug your business. I was like, oh, you're talking about me. I feel a bit embarrassed now. But what she said. It's things though. It's what I love to do. It's for me. That's so much more interesting to work with a business that has this underlying special message that I can see how well it's going to connect with people, and the idea of bringing that front and center and then building everything else around it, just makes for a more powerful message and a more powerful brand. And you started off not really loving marketing, and now you're on social media and you're having these conversations with people.
Yeah.
So being able to make that part of your business more fun as well, take out some of the drudgery, I find that that's very fulfilling for me, to be able to have that impact.
Mm.
So Catherine's asked, how do you kick back against people who are negative and don't believe your vision?
Mm. Great question, Catherine. For so long, I tried to almost be on my knees, trying to appeal to people. What I would say is tell real stories of real people, and maybe ask questions. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with somebody not seeing their children for 3 years? Are you okay with somebody surviving on junk food? Because I'm not. That's what I'm about. Mic drop, walk off. It's
Yeah.
up to them then to make their decision. So tell stories, answer questions, but then move on quickly, because you really just want to be talking to people who do get it, or who will get it. They just haven't been told the story yet.
Yeah. And this thing is, you have to accept that not everybody's going to believe in what you're doing. Not everyone's going to see it the way you do. Some people will try and tell you that you should be focusing on a different issue, that something else is more important, that what you're doing is, I get told that what I'm doing and what I talk about actually becomes part of the problem. You women should stop talking about gender equality, you're just making it worse. But and that's okay. And I'm happy to engage in good faith conversations, people that genuinely want to learn, or for them it's a brand new topic. But as you said, move on quickly from the people that you can tell just want to come in and tell you that you're wrong, have no interest in changing, because you can't appeal to everyone, you can't impact everyone. And for every person that
Yeah.
disagrees with you and tells you your business doesn't need to exist, there's another 5 people that actually are going to benefit from hearing from you. So yeah, like you said, mic drop, out the room, go and spend your time on someone else. I think it would be a bit soul destroying anyway to spend too
Yeah.
much time trying to fight your corner. That's exhausting. So yeah, just keep talking to the people who
Yeah.
care about what you want to do and want to have those open discussions, and those people that just want to be negative Nellies can go and have that fight with someone else. Is there anything else you'd just like to add, Antoinette, as a kind of final note?
Yeah, I'm so appreciative for you rocking up live today, and for those of you that will be watching this on replay. I've got 2 things. One, tell someone else one of the stories that you've heard today about cleaning. And 2, if you have a cleaner or you know someone that has a cleaner, make sure you know what they're really being paid. Is it the real living wage? Is it actually, we pay beyond that? Is it beyond that? Is it meeting all of their needs? Are your actions or the actions of your friends and family holding someone in work poverty? Because in the end, the action lies with us. The change lies with us, the purchaser, with whatever we buy. So yeah, know what your cleaner's paid, challenge the norms, share one of the stories that you've heard today. Thank you.
100%. Like you said, if we know what we're potentially supporting and we continue to do so, that's very different to actually people understanding where where their money's going. So yeah, share those stories, ask the right questions, understand that people may be living in really terrible conditions and situations, and that the cheaper is not always the better.